Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody. Coast to Coast, This Week in America. Matthew Patrick Gallagher, the author of the highly praised children's book, Screen Boy, Everyone Should Have a Chance, is a true believer of people, the world, love, and dreams. As a father of 4 children, he looks at the world from a child's eye. Screen Boy is the story of what we are doing wrong. Chance is the dog that comes to fix it. Screen Boy, about a young man who gets caught up in a world of technology and gaming, loses his friends, his athleticism, and his priorities. He realizes that one day he lost it all in screens and virtual reality, and the only one left to save him is his trusty dog. Matthew Patrick Gallagher is an American author, entrepreneur, and 30-year veteran of the information technology business. Screen Boy is Matthew's first published book, although he's written many which will be released over the next few years, including a sequel. In addition, also expected coming up soon, the beginning of a series of books entitled The Adventures of Two-Wheel and His Four-Wheeling Family. And in 2027, you can expect from him his first novel. Matthew Patrick Gallagher, the author of Screen Boy, Everyone Should Have a Chance, is our guest on This Week in America. Matthew, welcome to the program. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Rick, it's great to be with you, sir. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for taking time out of writing all these books to talk with us. You're a busy guy. You've got a lot of ideas you're working on here, and I love what you've done in this book. It is so well written. Screen Boy, Everyone Should Have a Chance. And I will mention that if you're watching the video of this, you're actually in Screen Boy's room. Talk about your setting for the video on YouTube.
I thought it would be a great thing, Rick. I thought it would be wonderful to actually be in his room. And I'm actually looking at his 3 screens. I'm in his room. He's actually over here to the right. Chance, the dog, is actually in the room with us. So it's a unique place to be. So I thought it would be the best place to be for the first book and for Screen Boy. So thanks so much for having us, Rick.
It is our pleasure to talk about this. What a wonderful job that you've done in telling this story. What inspired you to become a writer, and not only a writer, but a prolific writer? Where did that come from for you?
You know, honestly, my father was a gifted writer. He was a great writer. It was what he always wanted to do from the time he was a young man. And he didn't have time to do it until he was retired. And he delivered a few good books, The Devil's Work, and listen, if you're going out there and going to relax on the beach and you want to read a great book, Curse of Our Fathers, I think is actually, I'll put it up against a John Grisham or James Patterson or anybody else's book.
Yes.
Curse of Our Fathers, it was a great book of his. He passed away a couple of years ago, and I woke up in the morning and the next day after I delivered his eulogy, and I said to myself, the last thing in the world your dad would want you to be is sad. So what do you do? So I made the decision that I would write. I would sit down and write. So I wrote and published Screen Boy and got some help from my sister Katie on a few of the things that I needed to do to be able to release a book that I was not aware of because she helped my father. So there's so many times, Rick, I wish he was still here, because now actually wanting to publish books and do so much more in this particular area, I'd love to have his ear, but he's definitely in my mind and he's in my heart. So
I am sure that he is smiling, and it's interesting your sister's involvement too. So it's sort of a family publishing thing that you've put together. And Screen Boy, Everyone Should Have a Chance. Our guest is the author, Matthew Patrick Gallagher. I'll give you his website. It's simple, MatthewPatrickStories.com, and book available at Amazon, all of the usual places. What was the inspiration behind this story? What was it about this story, Screen Boy and Chance? What was it that formulated the story in your mind that you felt, I need to share this?
You know, I think the first thing that comes to mind, if you go through Screen Boy, I mean, it's essentially it's broken up into 2 pieces. Of one is technology and the other one is sports. And what I saw in the world that caught my eye was parents allowing their children to spend so much time on screens. and guilty as charged here in our own home of, watching some of our kids, spending too much time on screens, on their phones, on the Xbox, and all these things. And you looked around and you're like, wow, this something big is changing in this world of technology. And here I am. I'm one of these guys that has been in technology for so long. And what caught my eye was like something needs to change. Something needs to change. And what's one of the things I saw with my son Liam, who is the subject of the story, was he was spending too much time. And here he's got a couple of brothers that are great athletes, and one a musician. And I'm thinking, wow, this kid was born at the time that Steve Jobs brought this technology to us, this iPhone that they all carry around, which is like a computer in your pocket. And what inspired me was just the thought and the vision of, wow, how do we change this? What do we do? And then, the second part of it, Rick, which I think is the best part, is sort of this idea of how do I get away from the screen and how do I do something amazingly special, and athletic and healthy and something, away from that screen. And, the irony of it is when I wrote the book, I was challenged with Liam and his time on the screens, and he actually did very similar to what happens in the book. I mean, he's not scoring touchdowns every weekend, but he actually is an athlete, and he's done very, very well. And it's actually it's a wonderful story. Anybody that takes a look at children and says, we need to get these kids off these screens, we need to get them outside, should love this book without question.
The book is, well, yeah, I was going to say, the title Screen Boy, everyone should have a chance. And Chance in this case is Chance the dog. What was it that inspired you about Chance the dog that you wanted to make him a literary star?
He's literally right here next to me. Chance is, he's a unique dog. One of the things that inspires me about him is he almost looks as though he has human eyes. When he looks at you, you feel as though he understands what you're saying. So it was so easy to write about him in this format to where he could hear and listen. And then in the book, which I think is a neat part of the book, is how he talks and then he helps. And he's just an inspiring dog. He's, they say the dog is the man's best friend. Chance he's a wonderful, wonderful pet to all of us. Everyone in our family loves him. Because of my oldest son has challenges with dog hair and things like that, what have you. But he's one of those, what do they call it? I forget what they call it, but where they don't shed and they.
Yes.
Yeah. So the kids are able to be around. So the reason his name is Chance is because my wife came up with that name because it was the last chance for our youngest Liam to ever have a dog, and he loved our first dog, who unfortunately was making the kids, my oldest, sick. But he's just a wonderful dog, and so the story, the way that he's written in that story, it's just he gave us all a chance, and he looks at us differently, and he's always there and always jumping on you and loving you. And no matter what happens in this world, he's the most special dog you'll ever meet.
In the dedication to this book, Screen Boy, you dedicate to a special friend. Talk about that, because that's a very moving way to start the book. That's the first thing you read as you're starting to read Screen Boy. Talk about the influence that this person had on you.
All right, so you're going to try to make me cry on this podcast?
Not intentionally, but it was very moving when I read that.
Yeah, no. So the book is dedicated to my friend Charlie. Charlie Sweeney. He is the greatest friend you'd ever meet in your entire life. Charlie, just to put it in context for you, I'll give you two stories quickly. The first one is, while he was going through cancer, he had colon cancer, liver cancer, and lung cancer. He ran the New York Marathon with those 3 cancers. So he's
Wow.
not only a great friend, but he's tough as nails. But I'll give you a better story. I don't like talking about the sad story, the tough ones, but the funniest one of all time with Charlie. Charlie and I go way back. 1987, we're on our way to church, and we get pulled over by the police. We're driving from Yardley, Pennsylvania to Bristol, Pennsylvania, where we get pulled over for speeding on our way to church. And the police officer wouldn't believe us that we were actually on our way to church. And he ended up following us all the way there, and then he went into the church with us. And he actually sat behind us and went through the entire mass. And Father Thomas came back when the mass was over and asked the police officer, "Is everything all right?" And he said, "Yeah, I think everything is fine." And the police officer handed Charlie the ticket back and said, "Don't worry about it. I'm not going to write it up." And Father Thomas looked at him and he said, "Well, I guess you just met Matthew, didn't you?"
What a great story. And the book is dedicated to Charles Sweeney Jr., very good friend. So many stories. Write a book about that, because there's so many stories, and what he did with running the marathon and the humor that he brought into your life and all the different escapades. The story Screen Boy, everyone should have a chance, really touches your personal life or your private life with technology. Talk about that, the 30-some years in technology. Tell me what your take is, the pluses and minuses of technology that the kids have today and what we might see in the future. I mean, it's pretty hard to say, because we didn't have it, that we're better for it, and we see these kids thriving, and we can see it be abused as well. What are the pluses and minuses, and where are we going in the future?
I think it's such a great question, Rick. I appreciate you asking that. I think, as I take a look over the last, 30 plus years in technology, I mean, one of the things that we talk about is technology shifts tend to happen every 10 years. At least that's the way it went over the last 30 and going back to the 70s. So over the last 50 years. And you go from, the mainframes that my father worked on back in the 70s, are now carried around in the pockets of children. Where things are at today are both amazing, challenging, and scary all at the same time. I know, they talk about, as an example, I mean, a lot of the things that I work on lately are surrounding machine learning and AI. And there's a lot of folks that are very concerned about where that might go.
Yes.
Yeah, and they should be concerned, and we should put a lot of thought into that. I almost said regulation, but I don't know if regulation is the right word. The last thing in the world we want is government involved in anything. But I think that the thing that I would also say is that while those things can be scary, like anything else, they can also be amazing. I mean, what would happen over 10 years as a technology shift occurs can now happen in 10 hours or 10 minutes. And as these machines help us learn and they go through the intelligence of what they can take from all of the data that we can put into them, I think it's going to be amazing. And I would say that I'm optimistic for the children of the world. I am scared for them. I am also encouraged that I know, they call them millennials, and they talk down a lot of times about the children of today's time. But what I know about the human spirit is that people rise above, and they will find a way to turn it into something amazing. And if we can get machines to help people save the world and change diseases and medications and get people things, I think it's going to be amazing. So I personally think that the next level of what's about to happen in technology, I personally think it's going to be far outweigh the problems that it's going to cause. And I believe in the human spirit, and I believe that people do the right thing, I think it's going to be amazing.
What's it like for you being involved in technology? You mentioned how quickly things change. I could almost see a situation where you take a long weekend and you go back and things have changed since you were there the last day. Does it happen quite like that where, I mean, you're constantly, I would think, being updated on all the information?
Constantly, yeah. I think, and listen, they're smarter minds than mine that work on these things. But yeah, when you get around these engineers and these folks that know what they're talking about as it relates to the technology and the visions that they have for where that they can take it, it always blows me away. I'll give you do you mind if I give you an example from Screen Boy himself?
Please do.
Yeah, I'll give you an example from Screen Boy himself. So Liam came to me one day and he asked me, Rick, he said, Dad, why do we keep going to the moon and bringing back rocks? Why haven't we, over the last 50 years, taken up soil, seed, and water? Imagine what we'd have right now.
Interesting.
It's more than interesting to me. It's things like that. It's people like Elon Musk that, they think differently, and that's the way Liam is. He's got dyslexia. He thinks about things differently. His brilliant mind, and the places that Richard Branson has this dyslexia as an example, right? People like that have these brilliant minds that think way, way beyond the barriers of what we put up for people in schools and what have you. I think it's fascinating to me, and I think that listening to those folks and enabling their brains and not only enabling them but helping them proliferate those brains to new places. I think they'll take these new technologies and these new ideas, and I think it'll be just amazing.
Matthew Patrick Gallagher is our guest on the program. This book is Screen Boy, Everyone Should Have a Chance. Book available Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all of the usual places. Matthew's website is MatthewPatrickStories.com. It is an excellent website, a lot of great information there. Matthew Patrick Stories, Imagination at Work. There's a lot of great information. I love the pictures of the young people and how they're caught up in the storytelling. And Matthew is an excellent storyteller. And again, MatthewPatrickStories.com is the website. Kids on screens too much, we've talked about it, certainly a relevant issue to all parents today. Give me a little bit about the story Screen Boy, Everyone Should Have a Chance, and how you address those issues in the story.
Yeah, I think that the overall the overall thing right there, Rick, is just kids are just, they spend too much time on the screens, and it'll take them down. And children need to be outside, and we as parents need to ensure that we help them get into those athletics, be outside, spend time in the fresh air, in the beautiful places that God has given us, and the idea that everyone should have a chance is just, I think that part, everyone should have a chance, is really that a dog is such a good friend and loyal and trusty. And when somebody gets knocked down, they have to get back up, and we should all be good enough to say, hey, let's take a view to what things could be and what better looks like. And the part about it inside of that book that talks about football, I think, and if this is for any parent, I think that some people are challenged with football as it relates to, you could get concussions and things, and I don't disagree with that. We always have to get better in how we manage through those things. But as a coach over the years, the one thing that I know the most in this world, having played the game, coached the game, is that if you get knocked down and you get back up, you win. No matter how many times you get knocked down, if you get up one more time, then you got knocked down, then you won the game. And that's what the chance means. And I think, being able to tie it to Chance, our dog, just kind of makes it special. But it is truly a story of everyone should have a chance, and you should always, no matter what happens in your life, no matter what happens, whatever breaks you down, you should be able to get back up one more time. And if you do that, and you got the courage to do that, then you win. That's what the story's about.
The book is so well written, and it's relevant. Certainly, Screen Boy, Everyone Should Have a Chance by Matthew Patrick Gallagher. Time going by so quickly here. Let me just ask you who the book was designed for. I ask that because I look through it. This is like, wow, this is a good story for a parent, for a grandparent, to be able to help the younger people try to balance this, the technology, the pluses versus the minuses, getting outdoors, enjoying nature, enjoying athletics, and of course the young people themselves, Liam's age, reading the book. Who's the book designed for? Is there a target audience you have in mind?
There absolutely is. I really appreciate this question, Rick, and I give me a little leeway on this answer. I think the first thing I would say is, my wife is so good to our children, and she always read them stories as little kids. And I think it's so important for parents to read stories to their children. To answer your question, I think the story itself is designed for parents to be able to, let me take one step back. When my son Tyler, my oldest son, when we bought one of his first beds, when we took him out of a crib, we decided to buy him a big, I think it's a queen size bed, even though he's a little baby. And the reason was so that all three of us could lay in the bed and read stories. And I think that it's so important for parents to be able to read to their children. And I think that this story is a great one for parents to be able to read to their children, especially boys. I hope that I could write one for girls too that is similar. But I think this one is more geared towards boys, where they could lay down and read the story. And I think it tells a story about, the challenges of technology, the need to get out and be inspired by yourself and your dreams of where you want to go with sports and things of that nature, and take a step aside. So it's really geared towards that. I think it's, grandparents should buy it for their grandkids. I think let me say this too, and I asked you for leeway, so I'm going to take it, I suppose. When I was at Posman Books doing one of my book signings recently, one of the most amazing things was the first child that came up to buy the book. He was with his grandmother, and I asked him his name so that I could sign something on the book. And his name was Liam. And what was also neat is my sister Megan was standing right. My sister Megan's so supportive of me, and she was right by me, and she could see that it almost made me cry. I literally looked at him like, your name is Liam? Like, you're gonna really like this book. and he was with his brother Hunter as well. Two really nice young boys. I suspect that they were probably 6 or 7, but I think it's for parents to read to their children. It's for Liam's buddy Michael. I gave him a copy of it. Michael's a very special and brilliant kid. He sat down, he read it in 20 minutes and loved it. And I think he was probably 12 at the time. And I think that anywhere from the ages of 4 to even 16. I've seen kids, in the 15, 16-year age groups that have read it and it inspired them. So I think that, the book gives you a lot to think about.
It really does, and it's so well written, and it's the first in the series. I've got about 30 seconds here at the end. Talk about the sequel and when the sequel is going to be out. I think sometime maybe this year.
I'll tell you what, Rick, thank you so much for asking that before we break off. But yes, the sequel is coming. And as the writer, I will say this, and you can take it as the writer's comments, but the sequel is a wonderful, if you read the book, you'll see where Chance goes into the woods. The boys go to get the dog. And I will tell you right now, the journey that they take from Atlanta, Georgia to Memphis, Tennessee, to where they're going to take the dog to St. Jude's Medical Hospital, and where what they find is not only does St. Jude's help the dog, but the dog helps the children. The journey there is hilarious. Again, it's the writer telling you that, but I think it is one of the funniest stories you will ever read, and I think that anybody that doesn't read it is crazy, because it's going to be wildly great. It really is.
We'll be watching for that. You'll find information and be able to order this book, Screen Boy. Everyone should have a chance. It's out now. And get information on Matthew's follow-up book, which will be out very shortly. All of this at Matthew's website. Now, his name is Matthew Patrick Gallagher. Website, MatthewPatrickStories.com. Book available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, the usual places. I want to thank KingPagesPress.com, the author's marketing consultant, for arranging our conversation today. And, of course, all this is on our website, thisweekinamerica.us, that will take you directly there. Matthew, the time has gone by too quickly. Thank you for being with us. Thanks to Screen Boy for letting you use his room today and the set for today's interview. And hopefully we can do this again on the sequel. Thank you for being with us on the program.
Thank you, Rick. You take care, sir.
You as well. Matthew Patrick Gallagher. The book is available wherever books are sold. And, of course, information on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. We're back on today's program right after these messages.
This Week in America is online. You can visit our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Scott Pinkerton, Associate Producer of This Week in America. Jay Anderson, Segment Producer. Ben Watson, Webmaster. Otto Bechet, Director of Engineering and TV Production. This Week in America produced and is a trademark of Blue Funk Broadcasting, LLC. For information on all of our guests and to listen to this week's show, our website again at thisweekinamerica.us. And I'm Sean Bratton, Executive Producer of This Week in America.